You should be learning French like a child. But I'm not talking about effortless, subconscious immersion. No, I'm talking about something a little more intense, more focused. I'd even consider it hyperconscious. If you want to make real progress and take your French to the next level, you should be doing Dictée. But first, let's back up a little bit and I'll tell you about how I personally arrived at this breakthrough. So, the first official in-person French class I ever took was at the Alliance Française in Paris, and I somehow managed to test in a B1. Before that, I was completely self-taught. I had started learning French from scratch by using Rosetta Stone and was very passively watching movies and listening to podcasts in French, so my comprehension was decent, but I could barely speak or write. But I was motivated to get more serious about learning and improving, so that's why I decided to sign up for my first in-person class. And I remember on my placement test for the Alliance Française, I scored pretty well for comprehension and did really poorly on the grammar section, which I thought made sense considering how I was learning just by absorbing the language through exposure. But to my surprise, my score was worthy of B1, and so I went to the school and I immediately loved the class. I felt like my placement in B1 was fair because I was learning so much and was challenged, but also felt like I was well equipped to follow along and participate confidently. So because my formal education in French started at this intermediate level, I think I may have missed out on experiencing a lot of beginner level techniques and methods. So after that first B1 class, for the next year or so, I was in and out of classes at the Alliance Française. Maybe every other month or two, I would enroll in either a traditional class or one of the workshops that they offered for practicing conversation. And it wasn't until I had progressed to a level B2.3 class that my teacher happened to suggest we do Dictée. And I had never heard of it before. And there were a few other students in that same class that were also unfamiliar with it. And I'll dive deeper into what makes it so great later in this video, but just a brief explanation. Dictée or dictation is the practice of writing down everything you hear and understand when a teacher reads a passage out loud. So we're in class and the teacher starts reading out loud and we start writing down what we think we're hearing. And because French pronunciation is so fine and so specific, I feel like I'm listening and processing with every fiber of my being. I had never focused so intensely on something during my entire experience learning French, and something just clicked. And I don't mean something clicked and I understood everything. No, I definitely made a ton of mistakes during that first exercise. So when I say that something clicked, I mean I realized that this technique was really powerful. I felt like my brain was working in ways that it had never been worked in before. And I felt like all of a sudden I was building all of the links in this connection between hearing and understanding and processing, and then producing and physically spelling and writing it down on paper. Because it wasn't until I did this exercise that I even realized that my knowledge of the French language had so many broken and missing links. So, in other words, that first time I did dictation in French, my mind was blown. And I'm sharing this video because maybe you're like me and had never heard about it before. Because maybe you're also self-taught, or maybe you've been learning with other methods and have just never come across this technique. Or maybe you've heard about it and didn't know what it was, so you didn't think to try it. Or maybe you're a beginner, or maybe you've done it before a long time ago and this is just your reminder to try it again. Regardless of where you are on your French language learning journey, Dictée can help you get to the next level. And I think maybe any native speaker or any French teacher or anyone who's just more experienced with learning French would think that it's a little ridiculous that I'm so blown away by discovering this technique for the first time. Because that same day I was introduced to dictation, I also learned that it's common for French children to practice it from a very young age. So of course, it reminded me of all the references people make about learning language like a child. So yes, this is technically a way to do that, but maybe not in the way that one would typically think. I think when people refer to how easy it is for children to learn a language, they sometimes idealize this concept of effortless immersion, which is a learning environment that's just not totally available to adults and their adult brains. There are a lot of advantages that children have. They learn unconsciously and effortlessly, and some say because their brains are still developing, they're better primed to absorb and retain the language. but I think one of the most important advantages that a child has is that everyone is patient with them as they learn. And if you're an adult trying to learn and practice a language, especially if you're trying through immersion, you definitely know that is not the case in the real world. But as adults, we get to use the advantages that are available to us. We already have context and we're capable of understanding complex frameworks. And we have experience. We can be creative and seek out new methods. And we can be very conscious about what works and what doesn't work for our personal learning styles. And we can decide to change them. So if you're looking to try something different, there are a few practical ways that you can integrate dictation into your process of learning French from home. One easy way to do it, of course, is on YouTube. There is a ton of content out there, and of course, it's free. If you search for Dictée, you'll find creators who post videos reading passages out loud that you can then copy down yourself. And you can also find videos for all different levels. But I think a better platform is a site that I found that is dedicated to Dictée in French, and it's called Dictally.com. I'll link it in the description. But I love this site because it's free to use and you can filter by difficulty and by topic, and you can find your favorite creators, or I guess your favorite voices, because it's just audio and there's no video. But there's also an element of gamification, and there's a leaderboard if you want to show everyone how great you did. And when you make an account, you can sign up to do one every day if you really want to practice consistently. And it's great because their interface for recording your responses and correcting them is just really well integrated in their platform. So I definitely recommend using Dictally.com if you want to practice doing dictation at home. If you are an independent learner, it is really just a rich resource that you can explore. So the third resource I'll share, and the way that I love to practice dictation, is with my private tutor on Preply. If you're not already familiar with the platform, it is a site that matches students with private teachers for any language, and I've been using it specifically to improve my conversational skills in French. I published a whole video about my experience using Preply and the many reasons why I love it, but the biggest advantage is that your lessons are customized based on exactly what you want to work on. So I request to work on dictation, and my teacher will read a passage for me to write down, and then we correct my answers together. It's really just a very personalized experience where we have a conversation about the things that I understood or misunderstood, and I feel like it's really been helpful to integrate it into my lessons on Preply. So something I notice when I'm speaking French with native speakers is that I still have difficulty understanding and processing numbers at a normal conversational pace. For example, if someone's talking about real estate and comparing the costs per square meter of different properties and how much they've changed year over year, whatever it may be, if the conversation includes complex numbers, then I may get tripped up or distracted or lost. So when I work on dictation with my teacher on Preply, I specifically ask that she reads me passages that include a lot of statistics and dates and figures so that I can really train my ear to process these numbers. And I have been able to notice an improvement in my comprehension in real life. And I hope that it can do the same for you too. I love talking about my experience learning French and sharing what has worked well for me. I hope that this video has been helpful and has maybe inspired you to give this technique a try. If you are interested in the other methods that I've been using to learn French, then check out my other videos. I also post about all sorts of things that I've learned to do as an adult, and my channel is really about finding yourself through your hobbies and knowing that it's never too late to try something new or get started. So if that sounds like you, then don't forget to subscribe and leave me a comment. I'm happy to connect, and I'll see you next time.